Check, 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 1, 1. Check, 1. What about outside? Shmari.
One. One. One.
Good.
Nachtam le David, Sharmeini el ki chasisi vach. Hamart l'Adonai, Adonai ata, toivasi balalecha. Likdoshim asher baratema v'adirei kol chavtzivam. Yirbu atzvoisa macher maru balasich niskeyem midam uvalasat shemoisa mal sifasai. Adonai menas chalki v'chaysi ata taimech gairoli. Chavolim nafulu li v'banim af nachalas shafer oloi. Avorech es Adonai asher yotzani af leiloi sisiruni chil yosai. Shivisi Adonai lenagdi samid ki mimini balamoit. Lochein samach libi vayagel kevoidi af bisari shkoin lovetach. Ki lois azoiv nafshi lishoy lo lois itein chasidcha l'rois shochas. Toidi eini oirach chayim soy vasmachos es ponecha nimois bimincha netzach. The Rosh Yeshiva.
Mordechai. Shever achar shever. Shever achar shever, the Yeshiva. Mashkiach from the Yeshiva. Shever achar shever. Noch ist eine Mishpocha Mufueres. Nin Rabbanon, Chasni Rabbanon. Shever achar shever. Verloren. Gysi, mein älterer Schwager. Teure älterer Schwager. Mashkiach, Schwager, noch Pfarrer. Ankommen to the Yeshiva, when I first entered the Yeshiva, it's a Talmud from the Yeshiva. In mein erster Chavrusis, Mordechai, du bist gewesen, ein junger Mann damals. Nechachti lo das, I became a parent immediately. Issues miuchedes, bazunder miyuchod, koilu so much. Chochma, Gadlus Beruach, Harchobes Hadas, Hashpo, Morichomi, Vicha Agodol, Zroshum, Becho, Ganze Hashpo, Daitcha Kroivo, Dovuk, da Hashpo me Morichomi, Vicha Agodol, Roshum, Hashpo, von Joren, von noch Meshamish, soll ich die Meshamish Yeshiva, keine Levrocha. Die Hashpois sind gewesen mit dir alle Jahren, kosher aleim, bechol nimei nafshecho. Roishem, von then, es mekabel, gewaltige Roishem, never left me, and continuously grew with me as I came to know you ongoingly. The schus to be noch dem Ashwoge, Mishpocha, and noch dem die Yeshiva, Mashkiach. Sach Keul gewinn in sich. Sach Keul gewinn. Und sie gewinn Mordechai allein, alle Rishomim that were nimtze boy, alle Hashpoyes that were nimtze boy. So given Mordechai allein, miyuchod, aschus, to be with you, the Kabul Zain, from you, the Roshim is forever by me. Mashkiach, the Yeshiva, many years, Mashkiach, Mond, Mashkiach Mond, Mond Seder, Mond Sachen, die Yeshiva soll sein Geheugen, every way. A grace Achrayus, was du hast getragen, verjoren, mit Grace Achrayus. Der Achrayus gekommen mit Gufa Avoide ist Avoide von Tvier und Sidur und Dasein. Wie der Bocher, der sein Karoi, die ganze Yeshiva, Maschkiach von der ganzen Yeshiva, also sein Karoi, Zibura Yeshiva. It was held to a standard, was du hast gesehen, was du hast mekabel gewesen, megamas nafshecha, throughout, was zu sehen, so angehen azoi. Gefi, jene hoiche Ramah, that you came to know, you lived by, and you wanted to be mashpia. The Hashkoche von Tvier und Sidur came with a gewaltige Chefetz Lehetiv, Mashkiach eine Bekicho had to be mative to Yene Bocher, Kefi Inyonoi, to the Klal, to the Tzibur, Toichirotzu Fahavo, Vayede'ena. Als was das Mekabel gewinnt, gesehen, to mekarv it to a Dorat Zoyer who never saw and Kemat never heard, if not never heard, was sie gewinnt, wie es hat ausgeguckt, to give it over. Abwegstellen, ein neuer Dor, Kefi. Megamas nafshecho, ad yomcha achroin, ad yomecha achroinim. Choili serin, your tefillah, erste tefillah. So I heard, Oin shloim, chtaf noch yorin lahagdil Torah lahadira. Lahagdil Torah lahadira in the yeshiva. That was your bakasha. Wir haben nicht solche gewöhnt. Mordechai sei mispallel für uns alle. Die Yeshiva, was ich gewöhnt, als korb lelibcha, den Choshe Mishpocha Mufoeres, that you will mismasetu, cholin mei nafshecha, sei mispallel, the klal, the prat, v'onu, v'ani b'toicham, Tereichem Areshes, soll ongein, Be'ez Hashem. Sei mispal für uns alle. Boisham, soll helfen uns schon sein. Shever achar shever, Roife l'shvui leiv, Rabbi sein, Machatzti v'ani erpa, the größte shever. Soll schon solche sein. To the end of the talk, to that day. Koshalai Pedascha Mordechai. V'nafshecha tzur b'tzar achayim v'tanuach b'sholom al mishkovcha.
Harav Chaim Kirovitz.
Any hesped is difficult. But especially by the gewaltige Yetid and the gewaltige Adam Choshev. Yeah, going back a few years, Mordechai Zatzal was in my first year. It's over 50 years ago. I don't recall if he was the youngest. I think he was, but close to it anyway. So I want to just say my own personal impressions. Very hard to talk about a person, but I want to express my own impressions. First of all, those Shiva Rabban Zatzal was gewaltig machshivim. That's right, gewaltige chashivas. Yeah, it's true. A ben, father is the chashivas to a ben. But the Shiva Zatzal, if you didn't know that, you didn't know him at all. Everything that he did was genuine. Whatever he did was exactly as it is. If he was machshivim, that's what it was. Gewaltige chashivas. Talked to him, he spoke to him, and done with him. So the connection started, and then it held up. And then when he came into the Beis Medrash, of course, it reignited stronger. And they were very close. I'm sure he talked to everybody else, but he talked to me a lot. He talked and discussed and I want to say a few points. Very difficult position, a mashgiach. There's rules, there's dinim, different people, everybody got to handle differently. Everything was ois getracht. Ibe getracht and weiter getracht and weiter gesagt, daher und dahin. Maybe this way and maybe that way. Everything was a diyun. Every person was a diyun. How to handle, should he be more makel, should he be more machmer, what's supposed to be here, should he handle, should he not handle? Everything was always getracht. And you only do that when you really want to do the right thing. He was always worried, is it right, is it wrong? Is this what you have to do with the person, or is not what I have to do? He was gebenched with gewaltige midas toivus. Mamish the midas of a Talmud Chacham. Maybe it's Biyarush, I don't know what it is. But gewaltige midas, he was an extremely nice person. Extremely nice, not stam nice. Extremely good person. And a good person has an ayin tova. He sees only the good side. And the bad side, he said, well, this, well, and he'll figure out what to do. That was his diyun. And that's how it operated constantly. I will arise from the kelim from it, how are you going to handle this? This is not easy. Der Toben Tainus, der Tarumas, and der Nain is full of Tarumas. He tried his best. And that's a simon, a person that operates with a shikul. That's a vada, first of all, gewaldig interest for the tova of the person, gewaldig interest to do the right thing, and gewaldig yiras shamayim. It's all three things together. That's only a grace that Yiras Shamayim is worried about. That he's worried about what's going to be with the bacher. And how do you handle him? What should you do? That's what Hafley will fill it. Another dikka yedidis, Kaval al Diabdun, I missed that morning, good morning, the gewaltige geschmack, the interest, the happiness. So, Adler Hafli. The Eibshe should give the Mishpacha Kayach his Mordechai Choshev Rabbitson, the Choshev children. They should be able to find them and have strength It's only Hamokim that Yenachem Eschem, only the Eibishter can give them the koyach.
Harav Elio Yomark.
Mish Amalai Lamai Dai. Yom Tzor Seinu Dai. Tzor from Tzibur, from the Yeshiva, Mishpacha, myself personally. A very unique part of Mordechai was that, the Yeshiva, was very, very teeth, very teeth. Everything he said, everything he did was very addictive. The best about the Kishrin worked very hard to be aimed on this teeth of Kavanas, what he meant in Shir, what he was saying, what his Kavanah was. His nusach reflected the tifkeit that he had, and the Olam worked very hard to understand. Mordechai had Moiche Shala'av and Teretha Shala'av. He had a natural, besides the natural kishroinus, his kishroinus directed and naturally focused and a good clear tfisa on what the Yeshiva was trying to give across to the Olam. And he worked very hard, first of all, to incorporate all those tifah sagas into himself. And by incorporating into himself, I mean not just to understand it, but to live it. All the tifah sagas, he worked, it was the goal of his life to incorporate all that tifkeit into his hanhagas, whether it's his hanhagas for himself, and to give it over to his mishpacha, to his talmidim, and to the yeshiva. A person can't incorporate such tifah sagas into his hasagas unless he incorporates him into his metzias. And every madrega, the tif, the Torah needs a mensch that lives with that tifkeit, and that was mamish magamas chayav, to incorporate into his understanding, into his life, and to give it over to his mishpacha and to his talmidim. Such tifah sagas, nerdik tifah sagas, to a dar that Shitchi is the nicest thing you could say about such a dar. It's the best thing you could say about such a dar. To give over the roots and to give over that tifkeit, that gewaltige godless and das and anhaga, to give over to his mishpacha and his talmidim. That was Megamas Chayev of Al HaKol, Tzuras HaYeshiva, dealing with the yeshiva, that the yeshiva should reflect and bring out these gewaltige das and rotzen of HaGadol, coming from the yeshiva, that's all. The Gemara in the beginning of Pesachim says there was a Talmud who avoided, two Talmidim said over halach, one said Tameh, one said Asher Leitar. The Gemara says on him of Tachlimush and Yor Rabbi Yisrael. Only a person who incorporates such sensitivity and tifkeit into his dibur, into his anhagas, is zeicher to have a tfis in the tifah anhagas. And that was Mordechai. That was Megamas Chayev, and that's what he did to himself, his mishpachas hamidim, made the hefsid to the tzibur, to the yeshiva, and to the mishpacha, and to myself personally. I would often try to draw him into conversation just to hear his tefis and take on all kind of issues. His tefis Rishon was like teeth and I was like klar, and I always gained from just schmoozing with him. It always brought out gewaltige tiefkeit and klarkeit and whatever we discussed. Steht Yitzias sagt mir hier als Reisham, pana hoida, pana ziva, pana hadara. That's the matzah we're in now. I'm very stark upon a hoida, upon a ziva, upon a hadara, tzarach et tzara. Irotzen, we should be zeicha to hold on, and that we should hold on to the Roshim, and we should be zeicha to bring it to its fullest kayach and fullest strength. The nifta should be a male to Yosher. We should be zeicha to accomplish that. He's a Baruch.
Rav Yitzchak Meir Senderovitz.
Und Nesane Teukef Kedushas Hayoim Ki Hu Oyoim V'Noira Mi Bekitzoi Umi Loi Bekitzoi. We know that the Yeshiva brings the Gra on the mitzvah to be Mechabed Es Achicha Hagodol. And the Gra says that Dafka Abchor, the Oisius from Bchor, take off from Aleph Beis as Av, and the Bchor is a Beis, second Ois in the single digits, and the Chof is a second Ois in the tens, and the Reish is a second in the hundreds. Zok the Gra, that a Bchor in the house sets the tone of the helm, and Kafi the Nachas, that a Bchor brings in a home, that's the Giddel of the home. And Chalila, Fakert, if that's the negative tone in the home. We really have to go back a few weeks, 4 weeks ago, when we were standing here being Maspid the Yeshiva, and we could add a paragraph now to this Hesped. The Yeshiva had a Bchor that set the tone in the home, in the Yeshiva, that carried his father's rotzen, ba'oimik. And how many times the Yeshiva told me how his inner rotzen lives in his son. And the Hemshech Hadoris. And now that the Mashkiach, the Yeshiva's Bchor was Nifta, is we could add this paragraph on. As if before Rosh Hashanah is a Yom HaKsiva, and before Yom Kippur is a Yom HaChasima. The Yeshiva's P'tira was a Ksiva, a P'tira in the Ksiva, but his Bchor, his Hemshech, his Rotzin, was the Chasima, Avu B'noi, the Yeshiva's uniqueness. Legala Amuko is Badin, Avu B'noi. Hakoil Holich Acha Gmar. As I say to Mishnah Berurah by Neila, Hakoil Holich Acha Gmar. Mordechai, you had Yisurim. The last few years you had Yisurim. Yisuri Hadas, Yisuri HaNefesh, Yisuri HaGuf. Tremendous Yisurim. But you spoke with me and other people. That was what was on your mind. You were doing tshuva for the last few years. And you had the Pachad HaMisa and the Pachad HaDin in front of you. You expressed it and we saw it from you. Yisurim. Your Levaya is in Aseret Shemei Tshuva, Simona Milsahi. We all know the Rambam. The Biskarov would say over Rambam Pirush HaMishnayos. The Rosh Hashanah, we don't say Hallel because it's Yemei Tshuva V'Yira U'Pachad. And the Lashon Rambam is, the Pachad is Mivrach Mimena. Like it says, Ono Mipanecha Evrach. The Pachad Adin leads a person to try to run away. But then the Rambam adds on the words, Umano Yisei Lecha. Hamigehert of Pshat. For Rabbi Seinu, Bali Musa haben gelernt. Ad the Ikka from Rosh Hashanah, the Din from Rosh Hashanah is the Emes Adin. To tremble, the terror. And when a person realizes that, the only place to run away from Hashem is to Hashem, because the recognition that the fear of Hashem, das allein is a kirvus Hashem, das will der Eibishter, to internalize that. Like we say, Zoichalim v'royadim, me'emes tinecho, mi loy nifgad ka'yoyim hazeh, mi yitzdak lefonecho. Every pasha to Yid, may Godol ve'at Godol, get so moved in the Sana Toikif, im Kel Orech Badin, it's kein Twille. It's just being realistic in the matzav of Mishpat and the matzav Adin. Und das allein is a Zikui Hadin. Batuach sheyaseh lechem nes. The Mashkiach in the last few years of Mordechai, that you were suffering all different types of Yisurim. Like Rabbeinu Yoina says, Me'ez she'nofel all of Emes Maves, yesh lo kapara. You walked around with that pachad, the pachad for the din, and you did so much tshuva over these years. Hakol holech hagmar. Your feet brought you to the Beis Medrash. You walked in and you walked out. You walked in and you walked out. What was that? That was Evrok mipanecha eilecho, to the Eibishter. You also lived a very simple life, very pashut life, a pashut home. Tam tir Hashem Elokecha. Steht in Rashi, bis halach imoy besmimus, v'tetzapoloi, v'loi tachker acho asidus, el kol ma sheheyo lecho kabel betmimis, v'oz tia imoy ulechelkoi. The anivis and the pashtus. You were not nene from Olam Hazeh too much. Mordechai, you were not nene from Olam Hazeh too much. Benoisiv to the Yisurim. And this is what we say. Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu. The Malkeinu is made din of its Avinu. We're running towards Hashem. And that's what you expressed to me all these months when I saw you. Was wird sein, was wird sein. Oder Simna Milsa at your Levaya is in Yemei HaMishpat. Mordechai, I would like to ask you Mechila. I want to ask you Mechila. I feel a need to ask you Mechila. Ich bet, es soll möglich sein, mir, die Mishpacha, und die Yeshiva, und die Talmidim, und die Chaverim, und mi sheyomer lo ilamoi dai, yomer l'tzaruseinu dai, ubila amavas letzach, amacha Hashem lekim dilim yakalponim v'noimer amen.
Avi Meiri, Reb Nassan Schechter.
Steht in Pasuk, Afchach Masi Amdali. So in Chazal, Torah Shalamadati Ba'af Hisha Amdali. Mordechai, du hast gelernt Torah mit der Yisurim, He she'amdali. Het gelebt a Leben von Torah, a Melis beteure, und mit euch seiner Melis hat verstanden, die Tate, Herr Eli Kaparas Mishkovai. Hat verstanden, bei Meilel Joine, was der Tate hat gesagt in sein Teure, was der Tate hat gemeint in seine Zäunis, und hat sich also aufgeführt. Herr Mordechai lived a life of Torah. He was full of life. And he was full of a life of Torah with a deep understanding on a higher level. Er hat aufgestellt Deures von Torah, eine Mishpacha von ehrlichen Jiden, Bnei Torah, Chashva Talmid HaChachamim, Marbitzei Torah. We had a special relationship. Brothers. He showed himself when he came to the Simchas, we made Simchas. He was there from the beginning until there was no one else left. Our brothers are Simcha. Our Kiddush, Shalom Zachar. Our brothers are Simcha. He can't walk out. Mordechai Zelig. Der Geist der Weg ist mit einem ausgereinigten Guff, rein in die Schamme. Käfer, die sehr Covid, und Bettler, sie einmal zu sein und die. Bet, Kilukino, Bekeflayim, Shama, in Scheid, Vesheva, Begwaleinu, wie einmal zu sein und die.
Reb Baruch Schechter.
About 2 years ago, you gathered us and you told us that you're big tzara, and you said that when a yid has a tzara, he cries out to Hashem. That's all you cared about, cry out to Hashem. It's 2 years later, and the Tsar is coming so soon after Zaydi's Petira. For our family, we were Zoichet to have 2 fathers, Abba and Zaydi. Our family was very close to Zaydi. We lived in his house on East 17th, on East 12th, in Camp Morris. He guided us. He knew everything about us. We told him everything. We would go to him, just go to the house for a hug, a smile. When he got sick, we lost our Zaydi. And now we lost our Abba. Yisoymim v'yinu v'ein av. Abba was a Behalten Yid. He never stopped steiging and growing, but he tried as much as possible to stay out of the limelight. Abba sat and learned Torah day and night in his study, surrounded by his hundreds of svarim, which Mistama learned all of them. This was his Dalet Amis in the world. This was his real home, that study where he sat and learned day and night. Abba was a Mayin HaMeskaber. Every sugya, every inyan, every topic, he had his knech, his deep way of understanding. He was medactic on every halacha and shulchan aruch, and he ran away from machlekes. He used to tell us, I will never be part of machlekes, even if it means going to the other side of the world and living in a small house. I will never, ever be part of any machlekes. He was always looking for ways to be marbe kvod shamayim. He lived mamish bedachkas. He never wanted money. He never wanted any gashmias. He always said that he doesn't need to lock the door at night because there is nothing of value in his house. He doesn't care if anyone comes in and takes. And he was very proud that he had no shaykhs to gashmias. He didn't want money. He used to say over the Meiser from the Kotzker that one of his Chassidim once heard the Kotzker Rebbe say, Geld feh, and he was never able to look at money again. And this is how he lived his life. Geld feh. He was happy, he was content with not having anything, not owning the house, nothing. He didn't want kavod. He didn't want a shtetl in Yeshiva. He told me that he's taking the shtetl because his father, Zelig, wanted him to do it, but he didn't want it. He wanted to just sit and learn. But his life was the Bachram Yeshiva and giving over the Torah of his Rebbe to the next generation. He loved every Bachar and made sure they had everything they needed. Beruchnius ubegashmir, so they can steig. Abba was a tremendous Bal Chesed. He always went out of his way to help others. He took Bachram into our home, into our house, even giving away our bedrooms. When our uncle, Bianca Leiner, Zechron Levracha, was nifter with a almana and a house full of Yisayimim, Abba walked every Shabbos after davening to Borough Park to make Kiddush and to learn with the children. He did homework with them. He was like a second father to them all these years. Abba and Zaidi, Nafshay, Kshura b'nafshay. They understood each other very well, their feelings, their emotions. I saw many times they looked at each other. There was a connection. There was some kesher just from looking at each other. Abba understood Zaydi's Torah. He would repeat it to us, and he would show us. He was medayik in his words why Zaydi used this word and he didn't use that word. He showed us how every word was mamish tachas adiktok. Abba was the epitome of kibbur aveim. He used to tell me that kibbur aveim is not just a mitzvah to be mechabed, but kibbur aveim is to show that your entire mitzias, when a person respects his father and his mother, he's showing that his entire mitzias, everything that he is as a person, is all thanks to his father and his mother. And that's how he lived his life. Everything he did, everything he said was screamed out, I am a Talmud of my father. I'm nothing without my father. He got sick together with Zaydi, and he went to the Olam HaEmes with Zaydi. If there was one thing that summed up Abba, it was the Gemara. Rav Yosef said, Avdi li egla tilsa, ilav hayonyo de kagorim kama Yosef ikabishuka. And Rashi says, Shalamaditi Torah v'nisraimamti. Rav Yosef taught, it says, so that says, Ivduli, Avdi li Egla Tilsa, which means that he wanted his mishpacha, his bnei bayis to be part of. Rav Yosef was showing his children, his family, Nisra Imamti, Torah was miroiming me. It made me a higher person, an elevated person. I'm greater because I learned Torah. And this was Abba. Abba's entire life was giving over to his children and his Talmidim, Nisra Imamti. Torah elevated me to be a better person. And I want you to share in that Royim too. He wanted us also to become Nisroimim from Torah. And he would always tell us, Kol Yomai Gadalti Ben HaChachamim. All my days, I grew up amongst Talmidei Chachamim. Growing up in Zaydi's house, growing up with the Yeshiva Zatzal, and living Ben Koisley, Beis HaMedrash, his entire life with Talmidei Chachamim. He was mamish best friends with many Talmidei Chachamim. And he wanted us to know that being amongst Talmidei Chachamim was meroimim him. He used to say over there, when he saw Baron Kotler when he was 7 years old, how much it was meroimim him. And when he saw the Beis Yisrael, he told someone, he said, these eyes can never do an Aveira because they saw the Beis Yisrael. His roimim was so strong. It was who he was. And he tolerated the world around him. He was able to talk to people that were not on his level, but he never let anything bring him down from his level. He stayed strong no matter what was going on around him. And one more nakuda, Abba wanted to give over the Torah that he was makabel from his Rebbe to Yeshiva Zatzal Kinnesi Nosai. He didn't want to just say over the Torah, he wanted to live it the way he lived it by his Rebbe. And he would describe the environment, the atmosphere. Every mimer that he would say over, he would describe how the yeshiva looked and how he was talking and sitting. He wanted us to live, to feel as if we were there, the way he was there. I could see, he used to describe the yeshiva on Tkiyas, on Rosh Hashanah by Tkiyas, and on Yom Kippur by the Avodah, and by the Seder. We felt like we were there. Abba, you loved us so much, and all you wanted was that we should be Nisroimim. You didn't care about your own kavod. You only cared about us, that we should be Nisroimim. We ask you, Mechila, for not living up to what you wanted from us. The last 2 years were very difficult. He never complained about his pain. He only complained because his time was limited to do tshuva, to learn, to daven. He never stopped having bitachon. He would come over to everybody, daven for me, please daven for me. He was oiched that thousands of people davened for him, and were nisayir from him. He was a living yazkil yoyim amisa for these last 2 years. How many of us thought about the yoyim amisa because of him? And taket, were nisayir to tshuva. Abba, we daven for you. Now, please daven for us. we went through daven for Ima and daven for us, your children, that we should have koyach to go on without Zaydi and now without you. Where are we going to go to? Yisayim ba'inu ve'einav. Our mishpacha went through a very, very difficult few years. Bilo, Hamovas and Netzach, Moch Hashem Dim Me'al Koponim, Neymar Mei.
Rabbi Yitzchak Schechter.
I'm to be maspid, a father, to say what he was. He doesn't need me to say. Part of COVID is not to be machriyas dvorov, not to say that he's milus. His milus stood for themselves. He doesn't need me to say his milus. But maybe a little bit reshamim. Pasuk says, "Chari mois olam binu shnois dor v'dor shal avicha v'yageitcha zekeinecha v'yoimru lach." Person needs an av. Person needs a zokein to remember the mois olam. We lost them both in such a short time. It's like the world went dark. The world is just present. There's no more zeicher of the world that was. Abba was so dovik in Zaydi, and his Rebbe, the Yeshiva, Zechron Levracha, they went to Israel together. Abba and the Yeshiva used to eat by him, right over his Torah, and send it back to Zaydi. It meant the world to him. What they had, what to offer, meant the world to him. He worked on what they said, what Zaydi said, like we heard. Just saying also, he worked so much to know what he meant, what he wanted, not only to be able to say it over, but to be misboinen into the kuda of where it all came from, and to make it part of him. And his greatest desire was to give it over to us, his children, his Talmidim. That we should also be yoinik from Zaydi. So many years that we taka had Zaydi. Spent so much time there, and he let us go. Shalashuddis. Even though his Shalashuddis, his Suddis were similar, he also had what to say, and there was a Meroimim Dika Suda, but he wanted us to go to Zaydi, where he got it from. Go get it from the source. I was speaking today with Chaim Yitzchak Kaplan, who was his Yedid Nefesh, Mamish. They spent many hours together in discussion. He told me that one time Zaydi saw them talking for a long time. So he asked, what are you discussing? So Abba said, we're developing our character. And Chaim Yitzchak told it over that that's taka what they were doing. They were developing together their character. So he said, you had a father like no other. Then he explained that his sheifas, his miyuchadik sheifas that no one else shared, which he was yearning from his father and his Rebbe. And it caused him to be makir the emes, the way the Torah says it, exactly the way the Torah says it. The way to understand it from the Torah and not mixed in And he was so driven to share that, he was consumed and driven to give that over to his Talmidim and to his children. And that's what was so miyuchad about him. He was taka consumed with that. He said he was in his room, he was always in his room. He did nothing else. He had nothing else. He did nothing else except for learning all hours, all in Yonim, for long periods of time. He'd sit with a sefer, piles of Sfarim sometimes, and all different kinds of Sfarim. And they all spoke to him, they all talked to him, and he took from all of them, and his tfisa developed from what he took from his Rabbeim and what he saw, and it all went into the way he thought and the way he saw the world. He once commented that when he looks out at the world, half his vision, I don't know if he said roiv, 3/4 or half, or more than half, I don't remember exactly, but more than half of his panoramic view is of the Yeshiva Zatzal, the Baal Pachad Yitzchak. That's what he saw. When he looked out at the world, that's what he saw. And he saw the world with that vision. So I want to add that the rest of the panoramic view included his father and his other Rabbeim that he had. He spent years in Mir, Reb Chaim Shmulevitz and Reb Nochem. And that also went in. His chavrusas that he had then stayed with him for his whole life. The Torah that they learned, the Torah that they discussed, the Welt, the Tfisa in the Welt, in the Torah that helps a person to understand the Welt, what they discussed for so many years of that friendship. That he got from the Mir. He used to say over two simultaneous stories. I'm going to say them because he loved these stories. That he once went to see on Chanukah. He went to see Chaim Shmulevitz and Reb Nochem how they lit Chanukah neiros. So he went to Reb Chaim and he looked in the window and he saw the Rebbetzin prepare the neiros, and Reb Chaim was learning. And when she was finished, she lit the candle and she called him over to light the neiros. So he took the candle and made the bracha, lit the neiros, and gave back the candle still lit, and went back to learn. And the other story was he went to watch Reb Nochem, and Reb Nochem stood there and was making the wicks with a big smile on his face. And these are two opposites, but to him it was one. It was one world. He took them both, and he lived with both. With the fanfare and without the fanfare, and somehow he incorporated together, and that was his personality. And that was his world. His Rabbeim. I also wanted to say over that story that when he met, we have a cousin that was a ger chassid. So when they met the first time, he said, "Bist a ger?" So he said, "These Eugen can't do it. I can't do an avera. These Eugen can't do an avera because my eyes saw the Beis Yisrael." And the story, I heard the story in his room recently when he was on a ventilator and he was unconscious. We thought maybe he could hear, but when I heard the story in the room, and he was crying while the story was being said, he was tearing. This vision of the world that he got from his Rabbeim, I think we could, and that was a yeshiva to him. That's what it's meant to be. That's what the world is meant to be. I think we could to be typhus that with a word that he once said, that the pasuk says, "Vayichan Sham Yisrael neged Har." When they came to Har Sinai to Mekabel the Torah, they stood neged Har. So he explained. He said, it's not just that they were facing the mountain, but that their backs were to the world. The world made no difference. The world had no effect on them. They couldn't see the world. So all they saw was the Har Sinai where the Torah was given, and that was his world. That was his being in the yeshiva. And the way he he tried to bring that into the yeshiva. He'd like to tell a story that one time they brought a water fountain into Beis HaTalmud, and Reb Leib was very upset. Maybe he ripped it out. He ripped out the water fountain. He said the yeshiva doesn't have to have a water fountain, and he liked that story. But the yeshiva has a water fountain, but it gave him a tzura. It gave him a tzura of a yeshiva that what we don't have is what we don't need. Things that other people could imagine. Well, maybe this, maybe that. That was possible. That we don't. Our backs are to the world. One time, some Bachrim wanted that after Ma'ariv they should serve cookies. Maybe they're hungry. Stuff was a while ago. Before they go to sleep, they should eat cookies. So he said, the cookies in the yeshiva, it's not the Tzuras HaYeshiva. But if you're hungry and you want cookies, so I'll give you money, I'll supply you the cookies. Personally, you can have cookies in your dorm room, but the Tzuras HaYeshiva doesn't have to change. Similarly, they wanted to put coffee for an early Seder before Shachris. Same thing. Don't put coffee in the yeshiva that the Tzuras HaYeshiva should change. He'll put an urn or a kettle in his office, and if somebody wants, they could go take. But it shouldn't change the Tzuras HaYeshiva. Have your cookie and have your coffee, but the Tzuras HaYeshiva has to say the same. And that wasn't just for the world of the yeshiva itself, for being in the yeshiva itself. Once in a setting, we were sitting, there was someone that had left the yeshiva, and the conversation was about a ben yeshiva and not a ben yeshiva. So he said, the world is like a train. We're going to a destination. It's a long distance, and everybody's on the train. And your job is to stay on that train. For some people, the train is going faster, or they reach further. They develop into Talmidei Chachamim. And for some people, the train is a little slower. But don't get off that train. And that was a ben Torah. That's a ben yeshiva. That's what the yeshiva did for a person. He liked to say over a story that there was once an Alta Mir that after he came to America and he didn't have a mesgeres to be who he was. He learned in a shul, and after second Seder, towards the 7 o'clock, he would clap on the bima and say Musa Seder. And he went to learn Musa. He was one man alone. And he liked that story, because that story showed even a person that doesn't have the mesgeres HaYeshiva, but the Roshim was there. And he lived in the yeshiva, and he was so much part of the yeshiva. But he had that Roshim also from the yeshiva, in his own who he was. Those Rishamim that he got from his being a ben yeshiva in here and in the Mir, stayed with him with a clarkite, unimpressed from the world, unchanging. He loved people. He loved to schmooze with people. He loved to make people comfortable. All kinds of people. He knew how to reach them, how to make them mamish comfortable. Mamish. He loved the Talmidei Chacham in the yeshiva. Sometimes, at the end, we were able to learn together for a long time, for a few months, almost years, more than a year. Sometimes it was hard for him, but he would look around and he would say, at least I'm sitting, look where I'm sitting, surrounded by Talmidei Chachamim, by Lomdei Torah, and he would look around in admiration and such ava for his surroundings, of being able to be in the yeshiva. Those are the people that he loved, and the people that he schmoozed with, even if they weren't those Talmidei Chachamim, but he gave them the sense of being in the yeshiva. It was always, if you came into the yeshiva, the conversation makes you comfortable to be in the yeshiva. His Abba included everybody, but to bring them into the yeshiva, to make them feel like this is the place to be. This is the place to be. I was mamish 2 days ago. I was talking to Rabbi Simcha Khan. Told me that one of the shmuzim that he heard when he was a bacher is that my father said that Vayishasev Shmuel as Hagog Lifnei Hashem. Stell that to a Pachad Yitzchak that says that the Lifnei Hashem of Yom Kippur is, what is the Lifnei Hashem? Where does Lifnei Hashem tell Zachos? is in the Achidus Halavavis of Klal Yisrael. That's where it's Lifnei Hashem. And he stellt dazu to Yeshasef Shmuel as Agog Lifnei Hashem. To him, the Torah of Klal Yisrael was the Achidus Halavavis. And the Osid, the Nitzchias of Klal Yisrael was the Achidus Halavavis. The Nitzchias of Klal Yisrael was the Achidus Halavavis. That was the Lifnei Hashem. That was where he lived. He lived with the Bnei Yeshiva, and the Tzuras in the Mizgeres of the Yeshiva, with the mindset, with the Tzuras Yeshiva, and everyone was included into that. That's where he lived. Lifnei Hashem. Last short while, last 2 years, tremendous Yisurim. In those first days when we found out what he had to go through, we didn't even know the full extent of it, but he was have to go through a surgery. He was struck, and like was mentioned, he wants to be able to continue being over Hashem. So one time he commented, tell me something that Chizik. So I told him, Abba, you told me once a story that after the riots in Hebron, so it came Rosh Hashanah time, I guess it was in the summer, it came Rosh Hashanah, and they didn't know who was going to be the Baal Tefillah in the Yeshiva for Leil Rosh Hashanah, and nobody knew, nobody was told who was going to be, and I think Bleib Chasman was the Mashgiach. Bleib Chasman was in the Yeshiva, and he was supposed to decide who, and it came time for Ma'ariv, and they still didn't know who it was going to be. Finally, he picked one bach. He said, you're going to daven Ma'ariv. So he got up, he started regular, he said the first bracha, he started Avos Olam, and when he got to the end, and he started saying out, he burst out crying, and the whole yeshiva cried with him. And afterwards, Bleib Chasman said, that's why I picked you. So I reminded Abba of the story. He told over the story, B'Spilus, B'Chavivus, and he said, Shkoyach, oh, don't forget that story. Remind me of that story. Keep telling me that story. He was about Yisurim, and he never complained. He never, ever, I didn't see it. Nobody saw it. Other people made this comment. He never voiced complaint. He was makabel lahafli. It was all just the ability, the hakaras hatoiv to the Eibishter, that he was able to be in the yeshiva, and what he was able to sit and learn, the struggle to learn, and he pushed himself. But that's all it was. He never complained. I want to say over words from the Maral in the Siva Yisurim. He says, the Gemara says that Rabbi Yochanan was cholos all the gabei Chanina. And he said, Chavivin alecha Yisurim. So Rabbi Yochanan said, no, I don't want the Yisurim, not the Yisurim and not the Schar. So the Maral says, don't think that the Kavana of Rabbi Yochanan was that it's not Kedai, the Yisurim and the Schar. He says, but rather, it's Bevadai, Tzaddik has to be doyig, that he won't be able to be oimed b'Yisurim. And he's going to end up doing what Eve did. So that's why he said, I don't want them, and I don't want the schorum. If it's efshut to pata yourself from it, it's better that it should be potter from it. But Dr. Maral, bevadai ubevadai, chavivin v'chavivin, which is double lashon on both. Kasher soivel oisam, when a person is able to accept them, it's chavivin v'chavivin, keim zikoch hanefesh, ad she'em evim, the dabek ha'odam elav yizbarach. What it seems to us, he was able to be mekayim that. Half of a fellow. Just want to say one word to Ima. Ima, you were so devoted to Abba, every step of the way, not a moment thinking about yourself. And it wasn't just in the last while, it was for 45 years. Never thought about yourself. Everything was just that home that was described, that home should be able to be kaim the way it was, without anything. Didn't need anything. He didn't need anything. Imazicha didn't need anything. And And the amount of the investment of time and energy and effort and hope that he might put in, research upon research, I don't think there's one single person that she spoke to that knows as much as her, from all the people that she spoke to, about ways of helping, of curing, of caring for such a chayli. Just like Abba always cared for us and had us in his tefillas, every one of us, worried about our hatzlacha, davened for our hatzlacha. So too we should continue to be mispal for us, and he should be in our hearts and our minds. And with that, we should be schari bois olam, binu shnois dor vador. Everything that we got from him should grow on us. Yeh zichri baruch.
Rabbi Schechter. Abba, one of the last conversations when you were so weak and you were suffering that we had in the office, you asked me if I'm preparing a hesped, if I would be masked with you. It's very hard for me. I'll try. You always mention the Rabbeinu Yoino. Everybody has heard it from you dozens of times. Rabbeinu Yoino says, "Yesh oy tam nichbor oil al kulam." He's talking about why vazat Talmidei Chachamim is einlich chelek oil ma'ba. So he said 3 reasons. Yesh oy tam nichbor al kulam. Ve'lover maznu pesach devareinu binyan akitzah rois an eskaris ki adover yudua ki midarke kiddush Hashem yisborach lo yidia b'chol mivtos v'sayim. It's yudua that it's from darke kiddush Hashem yisborach to be moidia every word that comes out of somebody's mouth. V'chol asher yirmezun einayim v'chol anhogo v'chol yadayim ki yisoid l'nefesh ha'odom u'tzviyedyo v'atoy v'o'ikr v'atayelos v'ayikor asher boi is avodas Hashem yisborach v'yiroseh v'toyroseh. And Dover Zeh is Kvoid Hashem Yisborach. And Mevazel Talmud Chochem V'Yirosei, they're being mevatel this idea, and they're showing this hefech ba'anagosom, ukilu oimim omer, kiena avoida iker. B'chishoyesh Dover nimtzo m'buchti avoid Hashem Yisborach. And v'hem chalom es ha'toyer, al ken yoevdu mitoich ha'kol v'yichlu b'fiyem. Ki avoid Hashem m'pli yisak ha'toyer. We've heard from you this, Rabbeinu Yoino, many times. You were so makbid on the hepech of this. The hakpodah that you had, that we should be mechabed Talmidei Chachamim, that it should be divrei nishmoim, that other people should see the cover that we're giving them, and they should also strive to become Talmidei Chachamim. You always would say over, it was mentioned before about your years in the Mir, your years with the Rosh Yeshiva, with Reb Chaim Shmulevitz, with Reb Nachum. Even Talmidei Chachamim that were many years younger than you. You were mechabed them. You forgive the other Talmud Chacham. And they knew it. They felt it. They appreciated it. There's noch a Sache that his haracha for other people was based on their haracha for a Talmud Chacham. Somebody that wasn't married a Talmud Chacham was by him upgefragt in Ganzen. He would always mention also the other Rabbeinu Yoina. Matzei v'akesef v'kol azov v'ish l'fim ha'aloloi. That Mailas Adam l'fim ha'sheyalo. A mensch was that's mechaber Talmud Chacham that's a good mensch. That's somebody that we should have to do with. That's somebody we should respect. He wasn't looking to be a mechadish. He would just internalize and really ba'amoka gedoyla understand what was given over to him from his Rabbeim and what he learned from Andres Svarim. He wasn't trying to be mechadish anything new. When he would say it over, you felt azak klorkeit. You felt like you really understood it. It wasn't be'erech, it wasn't vague. It was the azak klorkeit. This attracted many bnei Yeshiva to speak to him because of this deep understanding that he had. And he had a tremendous wealth of Yediyas HaTorah, Yisoidistik Zachen, that a lot of people in the yeshiva appreciated, and they really gained from it. He was meroimim them. His izdabkus in his Rabbeim and in Zaidi, it gave him a ganze Yiddische Tam. I remember on Tisha B'Av, I was a little boy. I remember that it wasn't so common to see this by everybody. There were real hot tears streaming out of his eyes. It made a tremendous impression on me. Or Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, after you finished on Shemoneh Esrei, there were tears. You saw tears all over his eyes. He created in our house a heilige matzav, a heilige atmosphere. On Shabbos and Yom Tov, the Sudas were infused with Torah. One time after the Seder, one of the children in the family, they asked, so now what? So now we're going to go up to Shemayim? He was very proud of that he created that atmosphere. It wasn't only once that somebody felt that way. He managed by the Yom Tovim, Bichlal, he managed to create such an atmosphere in the house. For many years we had guests at the table, people that otherwise would not have seen what a Yiddish shtub looks like, some of them. What a Torah shtub looks like. They gained a lot from it. You were the musvas. You showed us what it means to be a Pashta Yid and at the same time be azad the hoibene yid. You didn't need much, like everybody's saying. We didn't have much at home. And we didn't feel like we were missing anything. And at the same time, it was such a dahoib in the house. You mamish moist nefesh was. You gave us all your koiches. You went out of your way to create the environment that you created for us. I wasn't knowing the proper covenant in return. But please be mindful of me. You should be a Melech Yeshiva for Ima and the ganze Mishpacha. Und mache Hashem Elokim dimmer me'al kaponu v'noi mer amen.
Rabbi Yosef Schechter.
I wasn't sure how to put 32 years, almost 32 years, into a few minute hesped. When Baruch called me last night about 2 o'clock, I think I sat for the next 5 hours just shell-shocked. I had a very special relationship with Abba. I don't know, special, unique, very unique relationship. Abba gave me his all and expected nothing in return. And there were times I had fallen, and he was always there to pick me up. I came home one day, maybe 13 or 14 years old, with a completely different outward appearance. Abba was shocked, and he froze for a minute or two. When he recovered, he put on his hat and jacket and said, "Let's go." We went to Pomegranate on Coney Island, but we didn't buy anything. We walked up and down the aisles, schmoozing, and then we left. He had showed me that in this neighborhood, with his neighbors and Talmidim and the Yeshiva, he wasn't embarrassed for me. He proudly displayed me walking side by side. I've never left his side since. The bond we formed only grew stronger. Years ago, he took me on road trips. He spent summers learning with me in the mornings before I went to camp. You thought learning b'chavrusa would be better for me, and you acted without hesitation. When I went through a hard time in Eretz Yisrael, you got on a plane to help straighten it out. As a young teenager, he wanted to buy me a gift, and he came back with 2, a basketball and a Rambam. No need to explain. And there's hours of material. Zelig, Olav Shalom, told me multiple times that Abba, Olav Shalom, I can't believe I'm saying that in one sentence. What happened? I'm not sure. I don't know how to move on from that. He told me that Abba's a brilliant man, and he truly was. Any topic, whether Torah, halacha, hashkafa, musar, to politics or history or raising children, he was fluent in it all. He also had no problem allowing others to help when he felt he wasn't sure how to proceed. Torah and mitzvahs was your purpose, and Abba, it's mine too, and I'm passing it on to my son. I know you're Michael me. If I'd ask you to forgive me, your likely answer would be, just make sure you forgive yourself. Whether in the house, on the road, in the hospital, in yeshiva, and now in a box, will always be attached by the hip.
Rabbi Yehuda Schechter.
The Mesilas Yesharim says on the pasuk V'ata Yisrael Ma Hashem Elokecha Sholem Me'imoch Ki Im Liyiras Hashem Elokecha. Sagt the Mesilas Yesharim, das ist der Iker Zach, that der Eibishter ist Shoyel Me'imonu Liyiras Hashem Elokeinu. Und sagt Avoida without Yiras Shemayim, sagt Eine Nirtzes Klal Elonim Eses Musuevas Chas V'Sholem. Abba was an Oived Hashem. Chol in Yonei Chayo wird gewinn an Oived Hashem. Sitting near my davening. Sein Davening ist gewinn mit Mamish and Avoides Halev, mit Pnimius. He davened mit a coil, with a fire, and that was mashpia on anyone sitting near him. I remember on Shabbos by Pesukah de Zimra, by the words Avorchas Hashem b'chol eis. He's saying those words every Shabbos for a lot of years. Avorchas Hashem b'chol eis, Tomet hilosei b'fi, Hashem tishalal nafshi. It was as if Ashira was his oile miliboy every Shabbos. My nishmas, mit hazah regesh, hat gesagt nishmas, v'chol avovo yisi reucho, v'chol kerev v'chloyo yisi zamri l'shmecho. Kol shkei by kriyishma, kabol sol malchus shemayim. He felt the b'chol levovacho, and it was mamish hashpo davening with him. Gave the hergish from the laovdei b'chol levavachem. Shabbos by him is given the spitz. His Suda Shabbos. Hazat the Hoiben the Suda. The Divrei Torah, Divrei Yerushalayim. If I bring him into Mishpacha, it was the Hoiben the Suda. Some we could say the Iker giving over of his chinuch in a certain way was by the Suda Shabbos. That is one of the Iker times that he would give over himself. He wasn't mechanich with giving instructions. He was as keven at the hoibene mensch, and his sviva around him was the hoibene sviva, and being with him was by itself mashpia. He was dovuk b'toras hamusar. He learned Shari Tshuva, Mesilas Yesharim, V'iyun, V'zboinenus, Nochamol, and Nochamol. I remember about 10 years ago, Abba was telling over to Zaidi a shtickle of Shari Tshuva. He was reading Baal Peh, 3 lines, Mila b'Mila, in Shari Tshuva. and he was saying a ganze pshat. And after he left, Zedig said to me, Ken Rabbeinu Yoina zevi eine ken Ashrei. Jeder Diver Rabbeinu Yoina is given, ich kann sagen, is given, mamish mesois chayov. There were lines in Rabbeinu Yoina that he would say over mit Azar Spailus, mamish mesois chayov. Recently, a bacher told me that the shticklich of Rabbeinu Yoina that he heard from the Mashgiach saying over in the Shmuzin, those lines are still ringing in his ears, mila b'mila. He once told me on the pasuk of Iro Shachar, Eina Shachar Me'oiro Yisi Al Ani Me'oiro Shachar. He told me, Eina Shachar Me'oiro Yisi. The pshat is, David HaMelech is saying, I don't need soirius from Dvarim Chitzoinim to be me'oir me. No, I am me'oir myself from meine hisoirius me'atzmi. No adoirish no mekayim. I hope I'm allowed to say this. He was ma'ir. He didn't wait for the shachar to be ma'ir him. He was ma'ir atzmai. Every morning at 5 o'clock in the morning, he would get up to learn every single morning. Whether he went to sleep very late that night, a kviyas was a kviyas. Every day at 5 o'clock, the alarm the alarm rang right away. Woke up Shabbos. He woke up even earlier, 4:30 in the morning, to get up to learn. He once told me, he usually didn't speak about himself. Once in a while something would come out. He told me that this Seder, on getting up at Shabbos at 4:30, he's doing for 30 years, Baruch. Das ist ein Zavo für uns. Mana sheyitzabes bono ves beiso yachro v'shomru derech Hashem. V'ata Yisrael, ma Hashem lekecha sholem me'imoch kiyim liyiras Hashem lekecha. Also wie steht in der Gemara, ma zarei b'chayim, af hu b'chayim. Bei uns being mamshich, seine drochim, liyiras Hashem lekeinu, t'minas alle b'toyo b'iras shemayim. Das soll sein, ha'ilu l'nishmosoi. And Abba, I want to ask Mechila from you for the Tsar Gidol Bonim. Ubila amoves l'netzach, mocha Hashem lekim dimo me'al kloponim.
Rav Yisrael Meir Feldman.
We recently lost Reish HaMishpacha. And if unsere Mishpacha tries to say Yisrael Hayinu, but he was still an Av. Now, we could say Yisrael Hayinu ve'ein Av. His avos was an avos that made that we should be Yisayimim with the P'tir of Zedig. He lived. He gave over. Was hat gesehen, was hat gehört.
He once told me, described to me, his position in yeshiva as someone that could be mekasher, that could nurture, that there should be a situation as the Bochum can haben from the yeshiva. That was his position, the way he defined himself. How many times did he tell me, wegen Bochum, that he got that Bocher to go over to Esther Yeshiva, question if the shir, he got the Yeshiva to say a shir for the Bochum, he got to start saying shir closely. The Arbete gewen, that the Yeshiva's Torah, the Yeshiva's Metzias, the Yeshiva's Lichtigkeit should be given over. Myself included. It's Pesach for me. Shari Oya from himself and from what he gave me to understand. Mitoyas Aviv. Aber es heißt auch mehr von dem. He liked to say over Lashon Ramban. The Ramban says, I'm not saying the Lashon exactly, Minig HaTorah by Anshe Maila L'Hachzil L'Roisha Yachas. And the words of the Ramban were by him Yesod. As the Doa Yachas und Anshe Maila zene Misyachas L'Roisha Yachas. Yachas wasn't a heretimtze, a oifen, via Zoe. How did he know something? Because he learned it from his father. His definition, he defined himself. He defined himself as that he's shaykh to the Rosh Yachas. That's who he was. He once told me over a Lashon, one of the Lubavitcher Rebbe's, he wrote a letter. He signed his name, Ben Rabchem. Das bin ich. It's the Lashon Rabbeinu Yoina that he liked to say over. Sein Rebbe hat gesagt, dass der Lashon sehr gut soll sein eingekitzt von Herzen. I think he took it to Afghan's Rabbeinu Yoina. Rabbeinu Yoina says in the beginning of Shah Sheni, V'yoysim heim abni zoyer, Loshu b'chol yoim b'nafshecha l'taher, Biladai teches esibet ma'yeres, V'yal de yoim mikoishun machshu b'yisecha, Ki siskar es b'yacha. Rabbeinu Yoina has two oifanim, really 6 oifanim and a 7th oifan. This kol mine oifanim that bring the tshuva, which Rabbeinu Yoina calls Yal de yoim. It's the nacha oifen that brings the tshuva, which is Kisizkar es Baracha, which Rabbeinu Yoina teaches into the pasuk von Bashem, Yitzteku v'yisalu kol zera Yisrael. Rabbeinu Yoina is Bamshich dorten, u'v'zachar yoytzra, ta'de edya, v'tichlol yofya. And Rabbeinu Yoina fears ois. U'lefi miyat ha'hechrich miderech hasiba ha'mayeres leiva odam, l'tshuva, u'kfi netoisa, el derech ha'rotzoin, Yivoda v'yibachen ki atshuva min ha'nefesh ha'chashuva. So Rabbeinu Yoina is mazben, and I think this is the way he explained to me this piece of Rabbeinu Yoina. So da derech ha'rotzen, and there's a siba ha'mayeres leiva adam. So da a mensch that his oifen ha'asiyah is neulet von yalda yoim. Und so da a mensch that his oifen ha'asiyah nimmt sich von dem that is dovek in shoyish. It's two different oifanim. Sagt Rabbeinu Yoina, das ist Nefesh HaChashuva. The Agdor von Nefesh HaChashuva is a Nefesh that poils, not mitzad derech hasiba, but it poils. The oifen that the Nefesh functions is was a dovek and shoyish. That's the description of this Nefesh. Nefesh HaChashuva. That's Hamirga's hand. This is what we lived with. A nefesh ha'chashuva. The shayrish gewen. Sein Rebbe, a shayrish gewen. Die Yeshiva, den Tate, Chaim Shmulevitz, aber es gewen dovek in shayrish. Und von dem gewen Anhoge. The Anhoge was yoitze from that Vegas b'shayrish. I want to speak out one Eichetimtze. There's many Eichetimtzes that this was misbate. And one of the Eichetimtzes, one of the many, was his oifen, the way he was the way he looked at himself wie Yid in Golus. Doch gelebt mitten Scheuisch und Yid ist in Golus, ist bei ihm zu schwenken in Chilik, Yid was wohnt da in Golus, Yid was wohnt in Golus 150 Jahre zurück. His Yachsus of the world around him he wasn't Misyachas, weil gewinnt ein Nefesh HaChashuva, das heißt, friert von Scheuisch herab. What was happening all around him, that had to get worked out somehow. That was another ASIC. After Eufen, what ditched him and what didn't him didn't make a difference. And he was Dovik and Shirish. He was not Dovik much in this world. He once told me, when Mashiach comes, all I need is my toothbrush and I'm ready to go. I'm going to start. There was a Bacher that came into the Yeshiva dormitory. And he wasn't from Yeshiva. So he said, "How you talking?" And the Bacher came from a Shver Stub, the Bacher didn't have where to be. He said, I can't let you can't be in Yeshiva. But the Bacher doesn't have where to be, so come to my house. He lived in his house for 2 years. A Bacher without a home. Baruch Hashem, as Hashem Torah mitzvahs all to them. He didn't make a cheshbon first in the practicality. That's not how the cheshbon went. The cheshbon given was darf sein. Und so hat sich ausgeführt. Da habe ich die Elfen und Bila Mavis. Und das ist auch Hashem Dimmel Kopan im Primam.
Reb Chaim Meir Ratberg.
Bin Kesse Osor, man hat gehört, als Kesse ist der behaltene Ohr von Hashem Oiri Zura Shoshana, der Ohr Apnimi, der Nefesh und der Lev. Und Osor ist der Schleimus von Melech HaKovid, Morichomi, der Maschkiach, hat gelebt zwischen Kesse mit Osor, mit der Ohr von Kesse, mit der Pnimius. Sein Leben ist gewähnt mit der Uchesteis, mit der Salvovis von Pachar Yitzchok. Hat gesagt, über sein Zikorin von der Yeshiva-Satzau auf Yom Kippur bei Ametz Koyach. Hat gesagt, bei Koyorom, Purim, L'Shoris, Bom, L'Melech HaKovid. Wo ich habe gelebt mit der Pnimi von Kesse und wegen L'Shoris, der Melech HaKovid von Osor. In die Tag, hat allemal vielleicht sagen, die Werte von der Ben Yoino. Ich habe gehört, die ganze Ben Yoino. Jeder ist gewähnt Milo ben Milo, Schkurim alle Scheinoi. Und ich vielleicht sagen, über Besucher Joizio. Bescheid, wir sind solche, die Joizio, Tade Edia, Vetichlo Jofio. Und wenn wir Zahre sein, der andere Ben Yoino, und Schar Schlishi. Chaye vo Odom, L'Stadel. Liknois lenafshoi tomid, wie keine für sein Nefesh. Han Hogis, ham Chuyovis min Azchio. Han Hogis, was ist ein Mechuyev von der Schio. Von der Schio von Hashem Yisborach. Kmoi Hayiro, Vatznius, Vikishon HaMachshovis, Vitachsis Amidois. Sagt er, Ben Yoiniki, Zera HaKoidish Asigu, der Zera von Ovis HaKdoishim, Zera HaKoidish Asigu, Kohan Hoganovo. Jeder Sheina an Hoga, Vamatiro Ba'aleo, was ist crowns by Leo Mischiras Hashem Yisborach. He brings the Pasuk by Hashem Yitztiku v'Yishalulu Kazera Yisrael. Und ist given Marchiv Behekiv u'Ba'oimek Größe Maimorim of Torah Ben Yoino. Alle von seinen Torah ist given sehr tief und sehr breit mit der Räumemus von Avoida, von Gavus, was wir mit Kabel von seinen Abayim. Like when Megado, the Bochrim in the Yeshiva, mit der Eufen. Und allemal vielleicht sagen, Kol Yom HaGedalti ben HaChachomim. bei seiner Tate, der Yeshiva, Zechrono Levrocho, und bei seinem Rebbe, was gewinnt bei ihm, a Tate, Seide, wir funden der Yeshiva, Zechrono Levrocho. Auf Leila Yom Tovim, he be mit Sayertos, was ist gewinnt, bei der Yeshiva ist on Stone Avenue, und gelebt in der Welt von Stone Avenue, die Yeshiva dorten, bei der Yeshiva, von Meshameshem, und gelebt das ganze Leben mit dem, und he brought us into der Welt, was gewinnt sein Welt. Und sein Dweikes, und in sein Tate, und wenn wir gaan uns, und alle Talmidim, zu lernen von ihm. He was living in Eretz Yisrael, und sein Yidin Nafshoi, Chaim Yitzchok, hat gewollt, so bleiben mit ihm in Eretz Yisrael. Aber he wanted to come back as ein Kinder, so sein bei der Tate, sein bei der Yeshiva, so lernen von ihm, so sehen ihm, so mishamish bei ihm. Auf der erste Nacht von Yom Tov von Sukkot, gegangen zu der Yeshiva in der Sukkot, sein Tate mit der ganzen Mishpoche, und ich kann nicht mit Zeier sein, aber die, was es gewinnt da, ist beginnt es Mitchell, ja. Ich will so helfen, so mamschig, was gelernt auf uns, was mit dem Kabel von seinen Beinen, sein Tate, und der Yeshiva sich in der Woche, Yehi sich Baruch.
Rav Eliyahu, Fruchthändler.
Der Yeshiva Rabbi Yonason soll sein gesund und stark. Writes the Indian of Mises Tzadikim Mechaperes. He brings the Maral and Netzach. In Saim Gedalia, it's Bedavken Aser Simei Tshuva, Bizman Hazeh, Sheha Oila V'Shavel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hu Hazman, Sheha Tzadik Mistalek Min Hagov, V'Oila L'Mayla. Ha'Stalkus Min Hagov, V'Chol Hester Oilam Hazeh, Aliyahu Avur HaNeshama. V'Hu Makbil Aser Simei Tshuva, She'oz Kol HaOilam Oila, U'Miskarev LaHaKadosh Baruch Hu. And with this we understand Mises Tzadikim Mechaperes. Because the neshama of the tzaddik that encompasses the doyer has an aliyah l'mayla. The entirety of the doyer has an aliyah. That great neshama, by being oila, is by identity an aliyah for the doyer and is a kapara. The mashgiach zecher tzaddik levracha was be'etzem a tzaddik. And in the last few years, v'hamevin yavin, he became an even greater tzaddik. Mises tzaddikim mechaperes. We know the shemesh is meir, and the Levana is a reflection of that oil. The Shemesh is the Noisen, the Levana is the Makabel. The Mashgiach Zatzal was entirely a reflection of his great father, the Rosh Yeshiva Zecher Tzaddik Livracha. The Raimamus of the Rosh Yeshiva Zatzal was very evident in him. He once mentioned to me that he was seared with the Gachalei H of the Rosh Yeshiva, the Baal Pacha Yitzchak Zatzal, and by his father, the Rosh Yeshiva. And that is who he is, and he cannot change that. His father saw in him an absolute reflection of himself. I witnessed Kimat every time the Yeshiva, his father saw him. His face light up in joy upon noticing him. He was the oyer of the Levana, a reflection of his father. The tifkeit of his father, the Yeshiva, was also very nicker in him. His first tfisa of Rabbeinu Yoina in Shari Tshuva was clearly a product of the tifkeit of his father, brilliantly true in its simplicity, extremely reminiscent of his father. I cannot express how much I enjoyed discussing with him my Mari Chazal, just to hear from him his simple understanding of them. It was like a balm for my soul. The clear, simple Tifa Havana was delightful. We would sit together on Yontif and discuss the Maimarim of the Rosh Yeshiva and plumb the depths of the sensitivity of the Yom Tovim. And I would always come away a changed being. And for that, I am eternally grateful. He viewed his entire tachlis in the yeshiva to bring the Olam HaYeshiva closer to understanding his father. That was his job and nothing else. The very expression of his presence in the yeshiva was that all the Talmidim should grow from the Reimamus of his father. He would express to me on multiple occasions how humbled he was by this chashuva olam in the yeshiva. And he meant the Bachrim in the yeshiva and the Yungalite in the yeshiva. He was blown away by their dveikus b'Torah and took pride and joy in being a member of the yeshiva. Not as a member of the Hanhala, just part of the Chabura in the yeshiva. He would remark, I can't get over this chashuva olam, and he felt privileged to be a part of them. For a while, he gave Shalashudas in the yeshiva, and the Bachrim expressed to me how much they enjoyed it and how much they grew from it. In the last few years, we witnessed an anomaly. The Mesiras Nefesh and the dedication he had just to being part of the yeshiva was astounding. It was the very identity of Chizuk HaTorah. He had what to complain about, but all he spoke about was his ruchnius and how much more he wanted to grow. Clearly, again, reminiscent of the she'ifa of his great father. Zecher Tzaddik L'Bracha. Yehi oir halavana ka'oir hachama u'cha'oir shibas yimei bereishis u'macha Hashem alikim dima me'al kaponim v'nei marod.
El malei rachamim, sheichein b'amroimim, hamtzei menucha nechayna, al kanfei hashchina, b'maylois kedoshei mutayrim, kizayar haraki amazirim, es nishmas Mordechai Zelig, ben Aaron Moshe, shalach loilamai, Bavur sheyitnu tzedakah barazkas nishmasai began Eden tehei menuchasai lochein ba'al harachamim yastireu b'seisa kinafav loilamim v'yitzrar b'tzrar achayim es nishmasai Adonai hu nachalasai v'yanuach v'shalom al mishkavai v'noimar amen.
We have asked everyone to please exit the Beis Medrash so we could take the Oren out, please. When you exit the building, please go towards Avenue M so we can go the other way and let the Oren out. The Levaya will be going towards Avenue L and making a left on Avenue L. Those who are going by car, please line up on Avenue P and Ocean Parkway. There are buses that will be parked in front of Pomegranate if anyone would like to go to the Beis Olam. Ladies should only be going out the locust exit, please. Those outside the building, please move a little further away from the entrance so other people can come out. The base Olam is Beth David Cemetery, 300 Elmont Road. Please clear the front of the building so more people can come out, please.